Hi, I'm Dave Wurzel, and you're watching Spotlight on PHTV4. And today we're going to take a look at cable, choosing cable as an option, or should I be streaming instead, or moving to that direction. To take a look at this topic, we're going to talk with Jim Chilson, who's the Communications Director at the Citizens Utility Board. Jim, thank you for being here
today. Thank you, David.
Always a pleasure talking with you, especially when we find a way to save some money. This topic is kind of interesting. I don't have the stats on it, but I'm very aware of this drift towards streaming. You know, it's becoming a much more viable option in a lot of cases. I know I'm still in that camp where we have cable and some streaming platforms.
That's right.
Both. And so now I'm wondering, well, wait a minute, do I still need the cable? Should I go to streaming? And I want you to help us take a look at, like, what are the pros and cons in that decision? Why should I maybe, cut the cable, move directly to streaming? And I think you're going to talk about, I know that your website, Citizens Utility Board, has a website about checklists to kind of help you make that decision. What's involved in that? You want to talk about how to make that switch? Should I make that switch?
Yeah, well, like any TV option, there are pros and cons, and we have a free guide on our website, which you talked about with this quiz, the checklist that they have, that is all about what good choices to make in the pay TV market. There are a lot of people who like cable, the simplicity of it, all the channels they get. There are also a lot of people very frustrated that they only watch about 7 channels and they get hundreds of channels and they're paying this huge bill. What's great about streaming is you can reduce your cost pretty significantly by going with streaming. Some of the cons are that you often have to do, and you mentioned this, you often have to do multiple streaming services. And by the way, there are a lot of people like your household that are doing cord stacking, they call it. There's cord cutting, cord shaving, and cord stacking. And cord stacking is where you have a traditional cable plan, and then you also have multiple streaming services. And that can get pretty expensive. But what we tell people is, some of the cons are that you have to always remember that you have to have a high-speed internet connection, no matter what. So you may say goodbye to your cable company, but if you're getting internet through your cable company, you're still going to be doing business with them because you need that high-speed internet connection. That's not necessarily a con, but that's just something to remember, that when you're considering the costs and comparing the costs of all these options, you have to always include the cost of high-speed internet.
And then you get into the buffering thing. I mean, if you don't have that high speed.
That's right. And they say often it begins at about 5 megabits per second, up to maybe if you have multiple streaming services, you might need 25 or even 50 megabits per second.
And this isn't, I need to ask it, I didn't plan it, but now I thought about it. What about if in a household you've got, kids or extended family, you've got multiple TVs, and if we're using internet, you have people using laptops.
That's right.
So if you have multiple things going on at one time, could that affect you sitting down and watching your platform at the same time?
It's one of the things that you have to ask. There's all kinds of questions you have to ask. It's a little more like the cable can be very simple. With streaming, you have to ask a few more questions. One of the dangers too is that you go into multiple streaming services and those costs can add up. Another thing is that you're going to have to either have a smart TV, which can connect to the internet, or you're going to have to use a streaming media player like Amazon Fire Stick.
Roku.
Roku.
Apple,
very good.
Apple has one.
Exactly. Apple has. There's many different. Even a game console can serve as a streaming media player. That's going to be a one-time cost. All of these things that you have to consider, and one of the big things you have to ask is exactly what you said, is with all of the, depending on how intense your internet usage is, do you have enough megabits per second to make all that work? Also, when you pick a streaming media player, you have to make sure that it works with all your devices. Does it work with my laptop? Does it work with my desktop computer, with my smartphone, or with my tablet? All of these things you have to ask. And what's great is, I think we have this guide on our website. It's absolutely free, and it can give you all those tips and all the questions you need to think of.
Okay. All right, good. So check out their website. It is a very good website, too, and a lot of great resources on it. And you've talked about some of those. And I'm thinking, as you're saying, I'm thinking in my head, I feel like I'm at that tipping point. I do have a couple different streaming services, and I have cable, and it's like, is this really what this is going to be? And you're right, they add up that way. All right, so let's say all right, no, I'm committing. I'm doing the streaming thing. What's the process? Now, I think I'm canceling my cable service, which may involve a fee potentially.
That's absolutely right. You got to consider that. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I cut you off?
No, go ahead. Yeah, what happens in that moment, then, that part of the process?
Absolutely. You have to think about, you're going to have to cancel your cable service. A good time maybe to do this would be when your contract is coming up again, and to consider these other options. Then you have to think about what streaming media player do I want, or do I have a smart TV? You may already have the capability to do this without having to buy.
So there's another checklist here.
That's
Go ahead.
That's right, and it's a one-time. The nice thing about a streaming media player, it's a one-time cost. It's not a monthly cost. However, the streaming, then you have to think about what streaming services do you want, and that's a series of questions. What programs do you want to watch? I mean, in my own family, we've talked about if we finally cut the cord and get rid of cable service, what kind of programs would we want to watch? Do you want live TV? That's an important question to ask. That it's not a given that you would have live TV. A lot of times, what we tell people is that you can get your live TV is you drop your cable plan, get a good antenna, which is relatively cheap. It's a one-time price. Get an antenna and just get regular over-the-air TV for your live TV, and then get streaming services to supplement.
So you still have both, but
you're
getting one another way while you're getting that. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
And then also there's the streaming industry has come to a point where they're now offering something called streaming plus live TV, and or cable replacement services. It resembles the traditional cable plans, meaning it's more expensive and it gives you a much more comprehensive service. So you can always consider things like Hulu Plus TV, Philo, things like that, YouTube TV. There's all kinds of Sling TV, you may have heard. There's all kinds of options out there. And then there are more basic services like Amazon Prime, HBO Now, Hulu, and Netflix, Disney Plus, things like that. So there are a lot of choices out there, and it's amazing. I mean, they even have streaming services for people who love British television, things like that. So it's pretty exciting, the things you can do.
It is. And again, as you run down that list, I'm thinking part of our conversations today feel like somebody recommends a show, and then the first question is, well, what platform is that on? And do I get that platform?
That's right.
Is that another platform I have to subscribe to? So yeah, and I could say, and there are a ton of them, and it's a matter of, well, where are the shows I want to watch? How do I get them?
That's right.
Any other advice you want to mention? People are going through this decision.
Absolutely. So also, when you talk about all the streaming services, there also are free streaming services out there. Pluto TV is an example, and it actually has live TV. The downside is you may have to watch ads, which that's not a downside for me, but you may have to watch ads. You may not get all of the selection that you might get with a traditional cable package or a more traditional streaming service, but just know that there are free services out there also to supplement. And I do think it's amazing, when I was a kid, we had the old-time TV with the antenna. We're going back to that. There's a lot of value to just getting over-the-air television with a good antenna. They look a lot more sleek nowadays. You can stick them on your wall in your apartment or in your home, and you can get a wide range of channels. And then adding to that, you can just get a simple streaming service like Netflix or Hulu or something.
That's interesting, and I didn't even know an antenna, that type of option was even available.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. And you mentioned the advertising. Another good thing to consider. I just went through that, on one of our subscriptions. Do you want this one or this one? Ads or no ads, and so there are a lot of little things to take a look at.
That's right.
All right. Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think you've helped me navigate that a little bit, streaming or cable, or a combination.
And make sure to go to citizensutilityboard.org to get that information.
Okay, a lot of great information, a lot of great resources at the Citizens Utility Board. I definitely recommend checking it out. Great information to pull from their website. Thanks again, Jim.
Thank you.
I'm Dave Wurzel, and you've been watching PHTV4 Spotlight. Today's Spotlight has been on cable versus streaming and what's involved in that package switch. Thank you for watching.